Hey, this is V, and thanks for tuning in to Bite Size Book Reviews. I recently finished reading a book called The Matchmaker's List by Sonya Lalli. The main character, Raina, is about to turn 30 years old. This is a really big deal because 2 years ago she made a promise to her grandmother that if she turned 30 without starting to see anyone seriously, then she would allow her grandmother to start setting her up on potential dates with people that her grandmother thinks might be suitable for her. So Raina comes from an Indian community, like her mother was Indian, but her father was a Caucasian person that she has never met. And a lot of the people that she knows has gotten married through these arranged marriages, or as she likes to think of it these days, more like arranged dates, since modern era is a little bit different from how things used to be. And while Reina doesn't think there's anything wrong with that, she personally would really prefer to, just meet someone and fall in love and have like a more romantic experience as opposed to something more like a business arrangement where she gets together with someone that her grandmother finds, but she also really, really badly does not want to disappoint her grandmother. And since having her get married and have kids is such an important thing to her grandmother, like she does feel kind of obligated to try and make it happen. Like it's not really like she's opposed to any relationships. So, true to her word, her grandmother begins to set her up on a whole bunch of blind dates, and that's basically where this story begins. There's a lot of things going on in Reina's life at the moment. Like there's the blind dates that she has to juggle, like all the strangers that her grandmother is trying to encourage her to meet or reach out to or get to know. Then there's the fact that her best friend from childhood, Shay, is getting married, and while Reina's excited for her, she's also possibly more than a little bit jealous, since it seems a little as though her friend has like the perfect kind of romance that Reina deep down really wants for herself. There's the fact that she's still really hung up over her previous boyfriend, like she's still deeply in love with him, at least that's what she thinks, and she no longer really enjoys her job. Like Raina works in investment banking, and she didn't really have a passion for it to begin with by the sound of it, and these days it's really kind of starting to drive her a bit mad. So this story is written in a combination of first person past tense and third person present tense. Like you have the main narrative, which is the first person and follows what's happening in Reina's life from her point of view in the current day, and then it's interspersed with snapshots of things from the past, which give you glimpses into her past as well as some of the events in the histories of her friends and family. So it kind of gives you a better understanding, I guess, of the situation outside of Reina's point of view. Actually, I think this is the first time I've read a story that's written that way. So a couple things to point out about this story. I think I mentioned before that I don't really have a high embarrassment tolerance, and it turns out that I have a pretty low awkwardness tolerance as well, and these are not the same thing. Like, I tend to feel vicariously awkward and embarrassed on the character's behalf, and I mean awkward as in, like, for instance, Reina agreeing to go out with someone and then them getting a call from that person's girlfriend in the middle of the date, that kind of awkward where you just have situations that make me deeply uncomfortable. And that's pretty pervasive in this story. And two major things that I think made it a little frustrating for me was, one, the fact that Reina spent so much of the story hung up over someone who, from the bits that it tells you, was kind of a bastard to her, and it makes me a little mad, like how fixated she was on this guy, even though he's totally not worth, I guess, all the pining and angsting and stuff. And then the other thing was that because of Reina's, I guess, combination of desire not to disappoint, but also I guess lack of courage in these things, like she ends up misleading or like telling a bunch of lies or deceiving people because she's trying to deal with, I guess, the pressures of trying to find a relationship. Like, she gets so frustrated and like stressed over her grandmother's attempts to find her a match that she ends up allowing her grandmother to believe that she's lesbian, and this causes this whole chain of conflicts, like with her grandmother working really hard to be supportive and then having to deal with this seriously conservative Hindu community, and like the fallout that happens between people. Like a lot of the relationship conflicts, like between friends, between family, between potential significant others and stuff in the story, just escalate and escalate, little train wreck style. Although it does, I will say, like, work out a lot of these issues near the through the story. Like, obviously things don't go perfectly. Like, you can't fix all these problems that you cause from lying. Like, that's just how life is. And actually, I guess that's something that the story shows really well, but it's still a little bit stressful, I think, when you're reading it. On the other hand, like, there was also some humor in the way it's written, and if you enjoy relationship dramas, then this is definitely, or at least in my opinion, one of those kinds of stories.